Alright, good evening everyone. Tonight I'm going to talk about deploying RequestBin application onto Azure in 6 different ways. My name is Justin from Maxia as a senior consultant. I am a Microsoft MVP for both Azure and developer technologies, and these are my the social media profile. So if you are interested in, you can follow me on Twitter or WordPress or LinkedIn. Right, before starting, is there anyone using the RequestBin at work or personally? Yeah? Have you heard about that? Okay. Yeah. Just in case anyone who doesn't know about RequestBin application, this is the simple web application that takes the webhook or web API payload to check how they look like, right? So it was very popular, but because of that popularity, people tend to abuse it. So it's not continuing anymore. So instead, they open the source on the GitHub, so we can simply use it for, and we can deploy this application by ourselves, right? So we are talking about deployment, right? And that deployment can be 3 different ways, actually. So the first one is using IaaS, and the second one is container, CAS, and the third one is the PaaS platform, right? So we will talk about the PaaS side later on. So bear this in mind. RequestBin application has 2 different components. One is web application itself, and the other one is a Redis cache. So we are going to use 2 different components here. So think about Azure virtual machine approach, which is IaaS here, right? In order to use an Azure virtual machine, we need to deploy virtual machine itself. We need to deploy network interface. We need to deploy IP address. We need to deploy network security group, and so on and so on, right? This is too much work. So, once we deploy all of them, but still not even close, right? So we need to So we need to install web server, we need to install SSL certificate, we need to install the Redis cache server. But still we need to do something more, which means we need to deploy RequestBin application, right? So at this stage, now we can use RequestBin application on virtual machine. To me, this is too much working, right? So unless it is really necessary, I wouldn't be using this approach. Now, this time we are going to use Azure container instances. So using this approach, we don't have to worry about server maintenance, right? Instead, we only care about containers. Okay, so which is much easier, right? And through Azure portal, using the Azure container instances only support single container approach, right? So have a look at this. So this screenshot tells everything. So currently, we can give container image name, and we can choose a location. Currently, Azure container instances, this service only support in Australia East region, not Australia South East region. And we choose Linux OS, and we give the DNS name like this. So that's about it, which is very easy, right? So if we really want to use multiple container approaches, for example, we have 2 different the application. One is web app, and the other one is Redis cache, right? Those can be a different container. So in this case, we need to use ARM template, right? So if you want to see more details on using ARM template and visit this GitHub repository, then you will see the more details. The only caveat of using this approach is unless we customize the existing web application, we cannot use HTTPS connection. So in order to use HTTPS support, we need to deploy as a function proxy, right? So when you see that repository, again, it already has a definition, the proxy definition. So create as a function and apply that proxy, then you can use it. Now, we are using Azure App Service here, all right? So this is all about the PaaS approach. Now, the RequestBin application uses Python 2.7, right? The Azure App Service plan comes with either Windows or Linux, but the Python 2.7 is only supported in Windows App Service plan. So bear this in mind. The code itself is the Python application, right? So, but this is basically the assuming to use Linux-based the operating system. So if you want to use Python 2.7, but it is running on Windows, so you might need to consider some kind of modification, right? And also, the app service instance doesn't come with Redis cache, right? So if we want to use this approach, we need to have a separate Redis cache instance, right? Now, so this is a little bit complicating that than I expected, right? But as a app service instance, support container approach as well, right? So container can be a different packaging, right? So this time we are going to use single container approach. Now, this is a part of a PaaS, but using a different packaging, as I said. So if you want to see more details here, then visit this GitHub repository. Then you will follow more details on that. So yeah, this is simple. So when we create web application, simply we choose Docker, right? Then choose single container here, and choose Docker Hub and Docker Hub custom the image repository like this, right? So this is it, very simple. The benefit of using this approach is as a app service instance, support HTTPS connection out of the box. So we don't have to worry about the managing HTTPS connection. Of course, if you want to use custom domain, then you have to set up by yourself. Okay. Now, this time we are going to use multiple container approach using Docker Compose format. Now, same as the PaaS approach. This time we use multiple containers, which means one container for web application and the other container for Redis cache, right? Both are coming from the separate containers, but we can combine it all together using Docker Compose format, right? So simply use the Docker Compose format here, right? Choose Docker and choose Docker Compose on this tab and upload the Docker Compose YAML file, right? When we upload it, and the Docker Compose definition can be seen like this, right? So this is how we can use Docker Compose format for multiple container approach. But there is another the multi-container approach using Kubernetes pod. This is another type of PaaS, right? This time we are using Kubernetes pod format, but make sure that we are not using Kubernetes service itself. We only borrow Kubernetes pod file format. That's it. Right? So instead of using Docker Compose, if you are familiar with Kubernetes pod file, then we can use it. Right? Choose Docker choose Kubernetes and choose the pod file, right? So pod YAML file has a definition of like this, right? So when we use it, then simply the spin up all the containers. So we have been seeing 6 different approaches tonight. The first one we use as a virtual machine. Second one we use as a container instances, and the rest 4 is we are using as an app service instance, but with a different approach, using manual installation, using single container, using Docker Compose, or using Kubernetes pod. So if I am asked to choose which one will be the best, then I will definitely go for the single container approach using Azure App Service Instance, because it is the simplest way of using it, right? So this is it. Any questions? Okay. Thanks for listening.